Hi, this is Magadh from thousandtrivialities.com. Welcome to episode 1.5 of a new series we're calling Drunks on Death Metal. It would be episode 1, but we recorded episode 1 and my hard drive crapped out. So there you go. What this is a sort of rolling set of conversations that we're doing. It's me and Keith, who used to be in Rorschach and Dead Guy, and Will, who used to run Chainsaw Safety Records. And we just decided to do it because we got some free time, and we used to hang around Reconstruction Records in New York shooting the shit, and we all love death metal. We all love metal. We thought it'd be kind of fun to talk about, and maybe talk about some things that highlight some things that people don't maybe know so much about or whatever. So this first episode is about the band Ripping Corpse, who were formed in Red Bank, New Jersey in 1988, if I recall correctly. They were a band that is dear to all of our hearts, a band that never really got the sort of recognition that they probably deserved, especially because they never toured. They put out a record, Dreaming with the Dead, which is really fabulous. I'll try and link that and some other things in the comment section for this. But then as soon as they put it out, or right after they put it out, their record label took the gas pipe, and that was it. They recorded the second one, which they didn't quite finish. Eric Rutan, one of the guitar players, ended up going on to be in Morbid Angel and Hate Eternal. But unless you were from that area, you didn't really know about this band. I'd never heard of them until I moved to New York in '91, and Keith played me their CD one night, hanging around Reconstruction Records. After Recon closed, because metal was a little uncool there, but that's whatever. That's fine. Anyway, so we're still sort of working out the kind of technological ins and outs of this. This conversation starts about 2 minutes in, and really the only thing you miss is Will asked me in the beginning how I had heard of Ripping Corpse, and I told the story of Keith playing them for me at some point. So we thought that this would be an interesting thing for people to hear about who maybe had never heard of them, or whatever. Good way to pass the time. We're going to try and do this on a weekly basis. Our next conversation after this one is going to be about metal in the punk scene, which we all sort of straddled the line of. But so for now, enjoy this. If you have any things you're interested in hearing us talk about, or comments or what have you, you can just ping the blog. And other than that, just enjoy, and we'll.
I think it might have been 8. It might have been an 8-track, okay. But it was just right away, just the musicianship, just a cut above everything. Just right. So, I mean, right off the bat, there was just something I couldn't even as 88, I was like 18, 19, like I just couldn't put my finger on it as much at the time. I'm like, this is death metal, but there's something techie and not proggy, but there's just something fucking weird going on with this shit. I don't know what the fuck it is, but
I will tell you what the weird thing is, because I finally put my finger on it today after 30 fucking years.
Do I want to hear this?
It's fucking Scott's cadence. He's got kind of a hip-hop cadence, the way he fucking puts his lyrics down. Mm-hmm. Like, the songs are brutal and heavy, but there's also like almost a swing to the way Scott, drops the lyrics.
Yeah.
But keeping it brutal the whole way through.
Oh yeah, totally, yeah.
Right. I mean, Go ahead.
Go ahead, please. No, go ahead, John, please.
I was just going to say, I only heard the demo actually fairly recently. This is like the magic of the YouTube era that, I was when the idea of like talking about Ripping Corpse came up, the first thing I did, as one might, would be like look them up on Encyclopedia Metallum or whatever, and see exactly what had come out, and so I listened to that demo, and it's obviously it's a demo, so it's like and it's hard to sort of imagine hearing it in the moment, because it's very raw compared to the album. But what did you like? When did you guys get the demo? Did you get it in the moment, and what did you think of it then?
Well, like I said, I got it in 88, maybe like early 89, just after it had come out, and I got it as a promo pack to review for my fanzine. And I was floored. I was like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Like, I can't put my finger on it, but I just want more of it. And so I instantly fell in love with it. But again, pre-internet and, you know, let alone like New Jersey, which was like on the other side of the country for a kid from Queens. All these guys that we did fanzines all in New York, we all routinely drove down to the Jersey Shore. We all took the 90-minute drive because they were a local band from the Jersey Shore, and we drove down all the time to see them. And whenever they came anywhere up towards northern Jersey or into New York, and we went to every show. And it was always one of those things where, like, it was always one of those interesting things when they would play. People beforehand were like, "Oh, I've seen the review like in a fanzine or whatever." But then after they played, people's jaws would just dropped of like, "What the fuck was that?" I'm like, "That was Ripping Corpse, right?" They can fucking stop on a dime. Like, as technical as the demos were and the musicianship, just live, they just fucking pulled it off like nobody's business. It was fucking crazy. And that was the first demo. Then the second demo, Glorious Depravity, came out.
Wrong. There was a demo before Splatter Remains.
Yes.
Yeah, Splatter Remains was second, and Glorious Depravity was the third.
What is the first one? Just self-titled? It came out like in '87, right?
No, hold on. I was looking it up while you were talking. I figured I'd be off camera so I could cheat. Death Warmed Over.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But when Glorious Depravity had come out, it became this thing where, like, they, you know, how can people not fucking love this thing? How could this not be the biggest thing since, you know, people are going to get it, right? Mm-hmm. And those that knew it got it, and then, but it just still never just took off. And I think about the business side of music, they never got the momentum because they didn't get a chance to tour or just play outside of, not even the tri-state area. They just played New Jersey and New York.
Right? They were from Red Bank or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and Red Bank was weird. Like, it was a really insular scene. Like, there were tons of bands that would play just like the shore area. Like, it was a big deal for them to come up to North Jersey. And we're only talking a 45-minute, you know, hour on the outside drive. You know, it was just, you know, they just had their own little world. But, yeah, I know I had a dub of the first demo. And then I want to say I got Splattered Remains. I think it had just come out that first time I saw them. I remember. I think I grabbed that in a shirt, like, right off the bat, because I'm like, you know, whatever they do, I need to have it.
No, of course. Yeah.
You know, because they were, I mean, it is as great as the record is, they were so fucking punishing live. They were so fucking relentless.
Like, one of my favorite just memories are just like one of the crazier shows I'd ever seen of them. They got a show in Brooklyn L'Amour's opening for, I think it was the Sepultura obituary tour.
Yes.
And the thing that was significant was, one, they finally got a shot to play at L'Amour's, which the rock capital of Brooklyn, huge venue. Like, this is the place to play. I forgot what song they'd opened up with, but then they go into Rift of Hate. And I'm like, fucking A, man. They're going to kill it like they always do. And that's when they first debuted the chorus that's on the album for Rift of Hate, where they drop it like 3 steps, and it's like a snail's pace.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those things where I'm like, did the sound go out? Like, did something go wrong? Like, the song just stopped. And there's that grinding, you know, that really slow part. Because I, you know, was raised on the demo for 3 years, and I knew that fucking chorus like nobody's business. And then when they decided to fuck with the whole thing, I'm like, they just reinvented the wheel. Did everybody understand that? Does everybody understand that the world, the earth doesn't revolve around the sun? They just demonstrated that the sun revolves around the earth. Holy fuck. Yeah. So even seeing them live. I'm sorry, go ahead, Keith.
I was going to say the best part about it was, I mean, they didn't change anything other than drop it down to about a quarter speed.
Yeah. But for those that knew it, we knew it like, song and verse. Like, it was like, we knew, like, so it blew all of our minds. And then, like, all these kids that didn't know it at Brooklyn L'Amour's at the time saw this, like, slow, heavy beat and beat the living fuck out of each other. So it was just awesome. It was like one of the best fucking times I'd ever seen them. So,
actually, I caught them doing that in, I don't remember what show, but in Jersey before that show. Okay. And that was one of those times where, like, you know something and everybody else doesn't. And I'm like, wait for this. See what's going to happen.
How many times have you seen them, Keith?
I probably saw them about a dozen times.
Yeah. Same here.
Maybe, give or take. But yeah, never disappointed. Never.
No. So I guess this is the part where we should also talk about what was your favorite time seeing them? Not necessarily the show that they performed, but the show.
Well, I know what show you're trying to goad me into.
Yes.
And sure, any show with a stabbing is a fucking great show.
There was a riot, John.
Right. Please continue.
Riot.
I definitely want to hear this.
Crazy.
You tell it better, Will.
So, Club Benet out in South Amboy, New Jersey. We all just show up. George Norton was there.
Yep.
If you remember George, John, I think you'd.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Frank
George,
Cassidy was there too.
Frank Cassidy was there as well, and I met Kyle. I met Keith's brother Kyle at the show. His brother had come as well, and so they're there. It's them and Revenant. It's kind of a sketchy crowd, but fuck it, it's all going to be great. Ripping Corpse comes on. Place is going ballistic. It's going crazy. George, as always, is recording. Audio recording every show. Of course, all of us being the fanatics we are, we're way in the back because I don't want anything to do with this stuff. We're all standing in the back.
Fuck no, you're right.
And you hear the audio because George had played it for me after, and you just hear it's whatever. Open wide, this rift. What the fuck? Hey, oh, what the fuck? What the fuck? You hear chairs being tossed, and then you hear the rumbling getting closer to George's recorder, right. And you just hear you should shut that off, and we should get the fuck out of here right now. And just after he turned it off, the whole fucking place just turned crazy. But we could just see this dust cloud coming our way, and the last thing you hear is I think you should turn that off, and we should get the fuck out of here right now.
That's awesome.
And then it was a crazy riot, and cops came running out of nowhere. And I think Keith, I don't know, you went in a different direction. I remember going in the back and helping the guys in Revenant just load their shit as quickly as they can. Yeah. Just for all of us, just to get the hell out as soon as we can. You might have helped us. I mean, you knew the guys, so you might have.
I was part of that melee.
Yeah,
because I came down with them. So yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. It was just, a fucking insane show. It was just fucking. They were great, but
right.
For the 4 songs we saw and stuff like that. But every time I saw them, they were great. One thing that was great with Scott, and I think it's on. If you look at the picture on the record, you don't notice it as much, but he wore a headset. He didn't hold a microphone. He would hold a headset. And so he would kind of just sing and just have both his hands free, which kind of added to this sort of weird off-timey thing that he was doing. It's not only was he off-time really music and sorry, guys. Yeah,
he was also really into martial arts. So there was a lot of, kata type stuff.
Right.
Yeah. It was like he was doing death metal Tai Chi.
Yeah.
Yeah. But usually in those days, the kung fu was in the pit. So
yeah. So he was the sensei, I guess you could say. But yeah, and I think again, but with them live, that's one of the things that just added to it. They had this weird off-time crazy stuff that was just techie and crazy and brutal, but they were always fucking tight as nails. Scott had this, interesting sort of dynamic of what it was like playing live. He always was just different than anybody else. And then for me, what I always felt was their secret weapon was their drummer, Brandon Thomas, who was a fucking octopus and a fucking metronome. And I don't know how to say this diplomatically, Keith.
A disaster. A fucking disaster.
Yeah. Never saw the guy sober. Never saw the guy functioning other than literally we saw people pushing him into the stool. And he'd have a crumpled 12-pack, and then he'd play fucking perfect, and then stumble off the stool. I didn't get it,
Yeah. When you were trying to tell me that, to get me to talk about that show, the best time I ever saw them was at the Pipeline. They played with Revenant, and there was 40 people there. It was a fucking Thursday night, nobody out, and when I got there, I sat next to Brandon, who was already hammered sitting at the bar.
Yeah.
Had beer with him, watched Revenant. Revenant, broke down. Ripping Corpse. They set up Brandon's drums for him. Brandon, sorry. And then I remember, I think I was talking to George. Had to be talking to George. I look out of the corner of my eye, and I see 2 of the guys from Ripping Corpse actually lift Brandon and walk him to the drum set. He sits behind the stool, and we've all done this when you're super drunk and you have to do something hard like walk or stand. He does that. Picks up his sticks and just takes 30 seconds to like run through the set like, you know, like he was stone cold sober. Rip through the set. They are fucking flawless. They were amazing. They played like they were playing 1,000 people. Like they fucking were just great. Set's over. He gets up and like does that sideways walk to the bar. Just goes right back to drinking.
Oh my God. That sounds, I mean, so this is like one of the sort of really sort of fortuitous things of the many fortuitous things of the time I spent living in New York was finding out about them, because really, you know, once again, this is, you know, back in a period which, you know, I was mentioning this to someone the other day, like whenever I talk about this to people, I feel like one of the elves in the Lord of the Rings, like talking about shit that happened like 10,000 years ago. But it was really weird back in those days. You could like, you know, these days, a band like with those kind of chops, it would be much more easy for them to get around, much more easy for them to get associated with like record labels who would sort of make it happen for them. I mean, the fact that they never toured, it's just bizarre. Like a band that like, you know, unbelievably tight.
But basically they signed their record deal, the record label went under, and they got immediately shafted.
Right.
And then they could never get the rights back to the record. Like they tried for a while, but they got dealt some bad fucking hands.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So
also real quick, John, it was, and we could say that again about other bands that like, I don't understand why didn't they make it that big, but Keith can, I don't know how, if he can or if we'd be able to articulate, there was something about the Jersey Shore that had this weird inertia that most of those bands had no interest in leaving.
Yeah, no.
They're like, no, there's a bar, the Brighton Bar is like a bigger place in Red Bank. They're like, no, we headline there, we're fine. I'm like, that's it? Like,
right.
You don't want to, how about Brooklyn Moors? They're like, if somebody offers us a show, I'm like, the music industry doesn't work like that. But so they were kind of content for what they were doing. Which, you know, you can applaud them for that. But yeah, it was a combination of just the momentum never took off, but also they didn't seem interested in wanting to leave southern central Jersey. Again, playing up by Keith's neck of the woods, northern Jersey, 40 minutes away was the tour. You know, They wanted a hotel room.
I can overnight that, guys.
Right.
Exactly, yeah. So
I mean, I think if generally speaking though, like, so there are these sort of like places where, you know, you can say this about sort of music, underground music, whatever, generally, but with metal, for instance, like there are these sort of like nodes, like Florida and Morrisound, where there's just like a shitload of bands that you could just name off, or like there's the Stockholm death metal scene, and then there's the Gothenburg scene, which is its own separate thing. But like you guys, like I'm sure could name a list of bands from the tri-state area as long as your arm, but I can only really, you know, I can only think of 4, and 2 of them I only know because of you guys, like Ripping Corpse and Revenant. Like I never would have probably heard of those bands. Revenant I never would have heard of if Keith hadn't like given me like Revenant cassette back in the long ago. But like Suffocation or Immolation, those bands I heard of. I actually owned the first Immolation album before I came to New York, but I don't think, and I think I had heard Suffocation too, but there was a ton of bands there that just didn't get quite the kind of play that like the Earache associated bands did, or the you know, the Swedish bands or whatever, you know, take your pick of like I mean, I just think it's weird because New York is such a gigantic, like the tri-state area is just such a gigantic, like critical mass of metal focused humans. I'm just surprised that you know, you look at that. Now you can point to like a ton of like metal inflected bands and the sort of like that part of the hardcore scene that was very like had very pronounced metal dimensions to it too. But like I'm a little surprised that there wasn't more, like there wasn't a sort of obituary, or there was no, you know, a Entombed or whatever that you can point to New York and be like, yeah, that's a sort of like top of the line death metal band that we associate with that place, right?
I mean, I would give it to Immolation.
Sure. I mean,
yeah.
You know, but I mean, the weird thing was, I think metal wasn't, and it never has been. It wasn't cool. Like, musicians weren't really gravitating towards that. There was a lot more avant-garde stuff. Punk was always big. Hardcore was big. It just seemed like metal never. I agree with you. It never really grabbed the foothold that it could have. But there were tons of bands, but most of them were just such trash that you got lucky enough not to have had to have heard them.
right. Yeah, for sure. And I mean,
yeah.
So like, I was reminded once again, looking up information about Ripping Corpse, to have something to say with you guys who actually know some facts, that Eric Rutan, who was later in Morbid Angel and Hate Eternal, was was he from around there, or what was the deal with that?
Yeah, he's a Jersey guy. Yeah, he was a Jersey. He actually, Ripping Corpse for a long time was a 4-piece, and
right.
then they brought him aboard, and I mean, and really, as a 5-piece, it made all the difference. You know, obviously having 2 guitars, when it goes to the solo time, the sound stays thick. He played off of Sean really well. Excuse me.
Right.
Especially with, another thing bands don't do that's all over this record is those like tiny little 4-second solos, like at the end of a verse, just this fucking total rip down the fretboard. Like, where the fuck is that? That needs to come back.
Right. Yeah, I remember like seeing Hate Eternal open for Who.
God, the Who? Crazy.
No, yeah. That would be crazy. But just thinking like, I recognized like Eric Rutan's playing from some.
Keep bleeding. That's the best joke he could come up with all night. There you go.
By the way, I don't know if you can peep this, nerd. It's Lord of the Rings beer.
Oh my God. Brewed by Gollum.
It's a Gollum red ale.
My precious. Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so just to sort of advert to that one topic a little bit, I really there's something that you kind of can't recreate, so much about the tape trading days, where like someone would give you a cassette of something that like could be from the fucking next county over, and you would be like none the wiser or whatever, or somebody you knew in some random place would send you like, I remember a friend of mine sending me the demo of Bonded by Blood, like, which was recorded and then didn't come out for like a year. By the time Bonded Blood, I recall, I think Bonded by Blood came out, like everybody had heard the demo. But, somebody I knew in the Bay Area sent that to me, and I was like, oh shit, this is like, super awesome. And it was just this sort of like magical thing. Like you were in possession of like some weird artifact that nobody else, now you hear something crazy and you're like, well, chances are it's on YouTube now, or it's on Bandcamp or whatever. And it's, it's cool. Like I'm sure we all still know about a lot of obscure shit, but it's not quite as like, it doesn't have that sort of magic. I mean, this is the kind of cool thing about like standing around with you guys listening to Ripping Corpse whenever that was, like just being like, holy crap, like how is this band not on some like gigantic top end metal label? But that's the way it was back then.
Well, also, I mean, that's again back in that whole time, just wearing a band shirt just spoke volumes about who you were, right? So going to punk and hardcore shows, which was already treacherous for people into metal doing that. I show up in a Ripping Corpse shirt. It's even a weirder genre of just like, are they even a metal band? And then those that know, they're like, fucking A, man, you fucking know Corpse. I'm like, yeah. You from Jersey? I'm like, no, I'm from Queens. But yeah, big fan. So, but yeah, I mean, and the thing about Ripping Corpse, which it's funny when you're saying like, why didn't they get bigger? Like, how come nobody could get that? What I always find really unique about that record, and when I turn people onto it now, and they listen to it and they're floored by it, nobody could repeat that. Nobody has repeated it. Like every other type of like bigger death metal band, and we've talked about the whole Swedish thing and the Florida thing, and everybody's knocked off that kind of stuff. Nobody can touch Ripping Corpse. Like nobody has. Rutan's doing Hate Eternal, and it's a fucking great band, and I love it, but it ain't the same thing. Like, there's something about Ripping Corpse. I don't know. It's Jersey. Is it in the water? I don't know what it was, how it was. But not only could those guys, since those bands have not repeated it, and all those guys went on to do Dim Mak. After Rutan had left and joined Morbid Angel, I think that pretty much signaled the end of Ripping Corpse and for the whole label problems that they were having with the record. Dim Mak was great, huge fan, but it just wasn't exactly the same thing. But more importantly, I've never heard bands ever since even try to do Ripping Corpse.
Right.
I don't remember who it was, but I know Bizzagatti didn't make it like to the end.
Oh, interesting. I thought he did.
Yeah, no, he didn't make it to the end, and then and Brandon only played on the first Dim Mak record, and they had John Longstreth play drums after that, and then the last Dim Mak record, Scott bailed, and Capizzi sang on it, Joey Capizzi.
Oh, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah, he sang on the final Dim Mak record.
Oh, I didn't fucking. Yeah. I would say that's fucking weird. Actually, no, it's not at all. That's a whole other weird cult. Which, John, do you know the name?
Dim Mak?
Or no, Joey Capizzi.
I've heard the name. I'm trying to remember it.
He was in Cattle Press, Dying Light.
Right, yeah. I think I've heard of him because he was in Cattle Press.
Was he in Iabora? No, I thought Iabora was Witty, Javier, and Mike D.
Oh, Mike D was in Iabora? Okay, I don't know. I never got a copy of it.
I thought he was.
Could have been.
Yeah. So again, again, there's that whole, and this is like all music scenes, right? There's this weird like Jersey Shore thing, and then like Capizzi, who's from Staten Island, and he somehow got involved with all this stuff. That's how like Mike D and Javier got to know those guys. I'm like, which is when you think about it at first, it's like, wait, that's weird. How do those guys all get to know each other? And then you have to step back, like, but wait, Will and Keith know each other, and they're from like Jersey and Queens, but they're friends and hang out. Like people do that,
right?
People can hang out and appreciate each other and do these things. So it's weird how like not only did Ripping Corpse kind of just like disappear into the ether, it's interesting to see like where it all started germinating in other places. So whenever you hear weird techie stuff of bands, and you're like, oh, that's almost like a Ripping Corpse kind of part. It's almost like 2 degrees of separation of like they had something to do with one of the people from Ripping Corpse. That's where they got it from.
Right. I mean, it's interesting how those kind of lines of influence happen. Like I was futzing around on YouTube a couple of years ago, and I was watching some interview with Scott Ian where he was talking about like his sort of process of riff generation, and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of like a reverse version of." A song by a band called Dr. No, who nobody's ever heard of. Now, of course, we've all heard of Dr. No, but and it's like, yeah, this is like a sort of reverse of a song by Dr. No called Mr. Freeze. And I was like, oh yeah, I completely know that. Not that many people in the world know or care who Dr. No was, but it's kind of interesting that like in his head, that was what it came out of. And once again, like I'm sure a lot of bands got out there later and were like involved people who had heard Ripping Corpse and been influenced by the way that, I mean, Ripping Corpse sounded different than pretty much any other, like, I mean, there were like Immolation and Suffocation are like very technical bands, but you wouldn't listen to those bands and be like, oh yeah, they definitely sound like Ripping Corpse, because they don't. They sound like, weird and atonal in their own way. But Ripping Corpse really, it's hard to think of another band around then that sounded like that and that delivered themselves in exactly that way.
No, and I think a lot of that is to the fact that in their own weird way, they were groovy. Like there is a swing to Ripping Corpse that there isn't to most other death metal bands. Most other death metal bands are just like precise to a T. Not that Ripping Corpse wasn't one of the fucking tightest bands you'd ever see, but there was a swing to them that other bands just didn't fucking have.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think, and especially getting a chance to see it alive all the times, at least I was able to. There was a weird symbiotic, like, just, they had a weird groove. All 5 of them had it.
Yes.
That you never really see in bands. There was a sense of confidence and a comfort level. You were watching a band that jammed 5 days a week, that fucking knew these songs backwards and forwards, could stop on a dime. It wasn't guitar driven like most metal is, and it wasn't necessarily bass or drum driven and stuff like that. It was all 5 of them knew what the fuck they were doing, and they were all confident as musicians on their own, which is something I never got to see, especially I never seen beforehand that early on, just going to see bands and all that stuff. Suffocation and Immolation, the parts were technical. If you really paused and thought about it, yeah, you can see how this is technical. But the minute you heard Ripping Corpse, you're like, what the fuck is it? Like, this is like way the fuck outside. Like, I'm good at algebra. This is trigonometry. I got to read the book again. I get it, And you were saying, Keith, about like the idea of that swing to them. The joke you say with certain bands, and I always think about this with Ripping Corpse, is for metal bands to start, there's maybe like 10 records you're supposed to own. They owned like 3 of them, and they chose not to buy the next 7. They're like, nah, fuck it. Let's get like some more prog rock stuff. And that's what really came in. And it wasn't like pretentious or it wasn't arty, but like it influenced their writing style that, like, again, no one else could do it. And I've never seen anybody do it since. There's one band, but I do have to correct myself. There's one band that not really came close, but one band that I think really tried. And again, cult obscurity went nowhere. It was a band called Human Remains. Oh, yeah. It had like this weird, crazy, frenetic style. Yeah. This weird, crazy, frenetic style. And they were all Jersey Shore guys. And, from what I remember, maybe Keith might know the lineup a little bit better than I would, but I'd always gotten the impression from them was like, there was Slayer and then there was Possessed. So, there was Ripping Corpse and then there was Human Remains. Where they, there was Entombed, there was Dismember. They tried to like do it. And they captured some of it. And I didn't kind of get it at first, but then afterwards I was like, oh, I get what they're trying to do. But I think like, one example where they came kind of close, but not really, they couldn't touch it because you just really, you really couldn't. And I can't say that about very many other bands I've ever seen live or heard on record.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's also because Human Remains was right there. Red Bank Band probably saw Ripping Corpse more than the 2 of us combined.
Yeah.
They worshipped at the altar of Ripping Corpse, but they were definitely more techie. And definitely didn't quite have the groove, which is, I feel bad saying because Woody was the drummer in the Machine. I mean, but they were, and they definitely tried, they definitely also tried to be more techie. Like they were definitely outside of the box. Like they'd have songs where like entire parts would just be guitar swells, like really fast swells. Like it was crazy. But that was blown away in a different way. Like it was just like, holy shit, I can't believe people can do that. But it also wasn't quite of a toe tapper like Ripping Corpse.
Well, there was no riffs. They had no riffs.
Ripping Corpses, they were like technical, so to speak, but they weren't like kind of math rock. Like sometimes like Immolation you listen to and you're just like, there's like a time signature here that I'm missing or something like that. I mean, like,
John, shut your whore mouth.
I mean,
hey Gandalf, take it easy on the broom. All right.
Oh my god.
I'll stick my Viking on you.
I mean, there's like, okay, so like maybe I could pick a less fraught example, but like another band that will turn me on to, and which will probably be embarrassed that I'm like even going to mention at this particular moment, is Atrocity. Like Atrocity.
Oh yeah, great band.
Yeah, like although they're now backing up, they're now like Leaves Eyes, but that's a whole other story. But
Yeah.
But they're like, Atrocity, you listen to them and you're just like, what the fuck time signature is this in? Like, it's in A, or like, I think I heard that part like 3 minutes ago, or whatever. Like, it's more sort of like musical in a way, although it's like severely atonal and whatever. But like Ripping Corpse is just like, fuck it, we're just gonna like, just dive straight into you. It's a little bit like that. What was that? There's a band you turned me on to the other week. Um, what are they called? The band that has like no intros to any of their songs. Oh God, I'll put down in the comments like when I remember what this is. But the thing I like about Ripping Corpse is just like they never quite give you a chance to like take a breath. There's not these like long whatever. It's just like here we are. We're in your fucking face like right now.
Yeah. They're Krav Maga. They knock you on the floor and they just start stomping and kicking on you till you're begging to stop. And then 3 minutes later, the song stops and then it kicks in again. You're like, But again, and I'll keep bringing it up. Like, that's what they were like live. It was just as fucking crazy live. Where when they were done, you were just tired watching them. It was just incredible. They were fully into it. They were like totally. They weren't like, certain bands that are technical. It's like watching a crowd rehearsal, right? They're just like standing there performing. Standing there playing. They performed like they fucking could pull it off like crazy.
Right.
One of the best parts was like the song would end and you would it would be like boom, Deeper Demons, boom, right into the next one. Like that's all you got. Like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
But even it wasn't even Deeper Demons. It was him with the headset of just like Deeper Demons.
Sorry.
Oh my God. So like the name that I was trying to think of, just for the record, is Oath of Cruelty, who are like very different than Ripping Corpse, certainly, except that they kind of suffocate you. Like, I mean, this is the thing I really noticed about like Oath of Cruelty is their record, like Will turned me on to a few weeks ago, and it's completely mind blowing. It's called Summary Execution, and it's a very good record. And I only bring it up, I bring it up not because like I listen to that, I'm like, damn, that sounds like Ripping Corpse. It doesn't, but it's got that same quality of just like won't let you take a breath. Like, here's some death metal in your fucking face, and that's something that I really miss. Like, there's all these bands that are so like over articulated now. We're just like, we're gonna have some fucking keyboard parts, or we're gonna have an intro that lasts 5 minutes, or like whatever, and like something that I really miss as a person who very much came out of the hardcore scene, like was into like punk rock before I found out that it was okay to be into like metal too. And then like, but what I sort of brought to that was like, I want that sort of immediacy. I want a band that's just going to be like, fuck you, here it is. Like, as opposed to like bands that are just going to like fart around before they get going. And that's something that I think this may have been one of the things that I really, dug about it in that first moment when Keith played it for me, was just like, oh shit, like here's a band that's like not that's not fucking around. Like they're just like, here it is, hit it.
Yeah. They have no reason to come up with filler. That like they know they've got the best riffs and the best parts. All of it's the best parts of the song. All of it's like the highlights of everything. So they're like, yeah, we'll give it all to you. There's nothing on the back end. It's all right here. You need to hear it all.
Right. So. They're not one of those bands who like, sometimes you'll hear bands and you sort of think to yourself like, oh, they're just trying to like make the song longer. Like they've decided to like add some like, right. They're padding it out. They're adding some repetitions, and a song should really be only as long as its ideas carry it along. This is like, in another context, like the problem with a lot of like D-beat bands, like, D-beat songs should never be longer than about 2.5 minutes, because they just like by and large don't have an idea that's going to carry them beyond that length of time. And this is something that you really liked about I mean, I was talking to someone the other day about the first time I heard Master of Puppets, and it has that like 3 songs that are like longer than 7 minutes, And I remember the first time I heard that, just being like, "What the fuck? Why would you write a song?" I mean, Master Puppets is a great record. Like, don't get me wrong, I really enjoy Master Puppets, but I enjoy a record kind of like Ripping Corpse more because of its immediacy, and it's just like, it's you're very with it in the moment. Like you're very, it's like they're with you. They're like, you can relate to it in a way that you kind of can't relate to necessarily a Metallica record, even a sort of earlier one.
Well, I think that's why Drumming with the Dead, and again, because I had the background of hearing the demos and seeing them live, that record is what they were just doing. They didn't like write that record. They didn't like craft this record in this way. They're like, yeah, these are like 12 songs that we have in our repertoire. These are the 12 best ones that we have. Which,
right.
Because the second record that's unreleased, but they recorded, I think, within 2 years. It's like within 2 years, you came up with this next crazy treasure trove of like insanity without a problem, without any backing or financial help at all. Like that's just, who the hell knows where they would have gone further with that. But I think that's one of the things about that record as well, which I thought was great with with Sweetness, the first song. Like it just goes right into it, and you just fucking feel it. And it's that weird, and it's the classic Ripping Corpse like off time, and I'm not gonna mimic it or do it because I'm gonna butcher it even worse than you can imagine. But just like when it starts, it's like just that off timing, doon da 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 doon da da. Like it's just right off the bat, it sets the tone for like there's no rock rhythm, there's no straight metal, guidance to this at all. Like just get ready because it's gonna get fucking crazier from here. Right. And it has.
Right.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was Sweetness, but there's one of their songs. Brandon is playing the hi-hat and riding the ride at the same time in two different times, besides doing the regular beat. And the next time I went to Rorschach practice, I had a riff and I'm like, Andrew, I need you to do this. like, just listen to me. Trust me, this is going to work. And I think it might have been, is it Mandible? It might be Mandible.
It's Mandible for you guys. Sadomasochist from the Grave is
the song?
Is the song, yeah. Big fan.
Both That's some sick shit that you can just pull that out. All right. Well,
I know what I
know. This is, a really great opportunity to talk about a band that, once again, just didn't get the props that they should have in the moment. And in a future iteration of this, we can do like other bands that we think that should have gotten talked about more, or we can do all kinds of shit. But thanks to everybody who ever watches this bullshit, and we'll be in people's faces again soon, probably, assuming my fucking computer will keep working.